Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Jones from Dime by OESD, and welcome to Software Success. Software Success is a live webinar where we talk about all things embroidery software from Dime by OESD. I love my embroidery software and could not live without it. It helps me in so many ways in my embroidery and crafting studio, and I'm here to share my love of the software with all of you in hopes that you too will learn to love your software as much as I do. I help you learn different tools, different features, inspire you with different types of designs. And today we are doing that very same thing. So today's episode was actually a request from a viewer. So we are going to be talking about sparkle and shine, and we're going to be creating a rhinestone design. So this episode, we're going to be talking about creating custom rhinestone lettering, as you can see there in the image. We're going to make multicolored rhinestone designs. I'm so used to saying embroidery. And we're also going to create custom shapes with our artwork tool. So you're going to learn a lot today in this one episode. So Software Success is the first and third Tuesday of every month. So come here and join me and learn to love your software as much as I do. So today, Sparkle and Shine, that custom rhinestone design, is actually being created with our cut and stitch software. This software is a combination software from us here at Dime by OESD, where it actually combines embroidery features and crafting features, specifically making rhinestone template designs, but also being able to create a digital cut file to use with your cutters so that you can cut, well, a ton of different types of materials with your digital cutter, and those cut files can be created with cut and stitch software. Not only that, but this is a very powerful artwork manipulating tool, so you can actually create custom artwork. You can import artwork or vector files like our SVG files, FCM files, and other types of vector files from outside sources. So if you own some of those, you can open those in your cut and stitch software. And any of those artwork files, whether it's built into the program or you create it custom or you import it from an outside source, can be converted to cut files for your digital cutter, rhinestone design templates that we also use our digital cutter for, but it also can be converted to an embroidery file as well, using either applique or run stitch, are the two types that are in this program. So let's get started with designing our custom rhinestone design. So I'm going to head over to my embroidery software. So as you guys know, I'm inside of Embroidery Toolshed, which is our program that houses all of our other modules. Okay, so today I'm specifically using cut and stitch software. So that's the program that we're using for the rhinestone feature. Okay, so let's get started learning about the rhinestone feature in cut and stitch software. So first, you need something to turn into a rhinestone file, and that would be an artwork. So you can either import a file from File and Import Artwork. So if you have an SVG file or another type of vector file that you want to bring into the software, you can import it here. You can also use the artwork from the built-in library. All of these different categories, as I scroll down through here, are all artwork files that you can then convert to embroidery or cut files or rhinestone files. So any of these files would work great. You can also draw your own files, which we'll be doing in just a bit. So let me just grab a shape. I'm going to just start with something simple here. So I'm going to go to the shapes and grab just this star shape here. Okay, and I select it and click OK. And now this is just an artwork. It's not embroidery at this time. You can see if I go over into my sequence view tab here and click the plus sign, and it opens up. and I can see that that is just artwork. So it's not stitches, it's just artwork. So I can export this as a cutting file if I want by clicking the cutter tool. So when I click the cutter tool, well, it tells me that it's too large for that media. And so let me close that out. I'm going to go to my hoop tool here and then actually change to a larger option. So I should have some media in here somewhere. And actually I don't, it is gone. So let's go to our filter here and double check that we have media selected. So if I scroll down, there are all the media options. So these are all embroidery hoops because this software can be used for embroidery. But when we say media, we're talking about the different types of cutting material that you could possibly be cutting. So I'm going to make sure all of those are selected and then click OK. And click OK one more time. Now it puts that hoop on my screen because that's what's selected, but I'm actually going to hide it because we don't need it. Now, now that I've got this artwork again, let's try this cutter tool again. So I'm going to click cutter, and now you can see that it opens up in my cutter tool. It has media 12 by 12, which is actually what I wanted because that's the mat size for my digital cutter. And I can just simply click the save option, and it gives me the option to save to different vector file formats that cutters will read. So SVG, AI, PLT, DXF, FCM, and I can also save to a PDF if I want. So my digital cutter would take an SVG file. I also have one that uses the SVG. I would give it a name and then choose a location to save it. So I'm just going to save that in my downloads folder and click save. Okay, so now that actually creates a cut file. Okay, if I click my view larger icons, I can see that it looks just like the star that's on my screen. There's no embroidery. It is just the SVG file that I can take to my digital cutter. Okay, so that's the first thing you could do with cut and stitch. Another thing you can do to cut and stitch is you can create an embroidery file. So these options here on my top toolbar are embroidery formats. So I can click on the run stitch and it will convert that to a run stitch file. I can also make that an applique by clicking on the applique icon. Now this is going to stitch just as you would expect from an applique. It's going to give me a placement stitch, a tack down, and a satin stitch. And I can convert it to an applique that has a specialty fill in it. Or I can convert it to a vinyl applique. Vinyl applique is if you want to use heat transfer vinyl as the fabric of your applique, and it actually includes this trapping stitch to prevent it from ripping away from the inside. When you use HTV as the fabric in your applique, you just tear it away from the edges, and that trapping stitch is going to prevent it from happening on the inside because we want the fabric to stay inside the star, and we would rip away the fabric on the outside of the star if you're using HTV. Okay, so now if you do create an embroidery file with cut and stitch, you need to save it as the format for your embroidery machine. So you would choose File, Save As, and locate where you want to save it. I'm going to stick to my downloads, and then I'm going to call this my star design again. But in this case, I'm going to save it to an embroidery machine format, in my case PES, and then I click Save, and it will save that as an embroidery file that I can take to my embroidery machine. Okay, so now let's see what else we can do with this particular file. So these next icons here we call Bling, which is a rhinestone feature built into the software. Now you can convert to a rhinestone stroke, which is just putting beads along the outside, or it can be a rhinestone fill design. Okay, so let's play with the rhinestones more, since this is what this episode is all about, and we're going to learn lots about what you can do with these two rhinestone options. So I'm going to go back to the Bling stroke option just by clicking on it, and it'll change it back to a stroke. And now the first thing I want to talk about is our palette of beads down here. When you have embroidery on the screen, so let's select our shape again, And I'm going to move that out of the way. Let's put that back to an embroidery applique. When you have an applique selected or an embroidery file selected, you can see how my color chips down here are my solid colors. Those represent my thread colors. But when you have a bling or a rhinestone design selected, you can see that my palette down below here is turned to my rhinestone options. Now, everything that's in this rhinestone palette below is also reflected here in my properties area under the bead selection. Now you can see I've got a combination of different stone sizes in this list. Now let me give you one tip right off the bat. I don't own all these different stone sizes. The majority of my stones, I would say 90% of them are a size 10 SS. So I don't want all these other sizes that I don't own in my palette. I also don't have a heart and other shape and these teardrop shapes. And I don't have some of these larger sizes, okay? So the first thing I would recommend doing when you're starting to work with rhinestones, I'm just gonna select just my rhinestone design. I'm gonna create a palette of stones that I own, okay? So here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press the minus over here in the lower right to remove any unused colors of rhinestones. And this stone right here is actually, if I hover over it, I can see that it's a size 4SS, which I don't own. So I'm going to click on it, just a regular mouse click, and it opens up the bead palette. I'm going to change from the 4SS to the 10. That's what size stones I own. And then you can leave it the yellow, or you can change it to a different color if you want. So let's set some different colors here. So I'm going to choose colors of stones that I know I have. So this ruby red here. Okay. And now this star is, and I can see it up here, and I can also see it when I hover over this bead, that this is a 10SS size stone. Okay. So let's add more stones that we own, that you have in your stash. I'm going to click the plus, and now I've got a green one. If I click on this, it's back to the 4, so I'm going to set that to 10. Click OK, and I want to leave that the green. You could change the color if you want. So I'm going to add another, the yellow, and I'm going to switch that to 10. If you don't have this yellow color, just select what you do have, or maybe you need to go to a blue, whichever color you have here. Just make sure it's the right size and the color. Click another add. I'm going to click on it again. So I'm just doing my regular mouse click there. So I've got my blue. I also have some clear stones. And so I'm going to select that, but I forgot to change the size. So I'm going to click that again and use that drop down list, and that'll change the one that I already have set. Okay. And I can also check up here. If I use this drop down, you can see I've got a red, a green, a blue, and a clear that are all 10SS. So let's do a couple more here. And I will choose this. Let's choose pink and make sure it's my 10 and click OK. And then I do have a couple of stones that are larger sizes as well. So I have a 16SS, and it's just kind of like a iridescent color or clear. Either one of those would work for it. But I'm going to put this light gray color, and it is a 16, and so I'm going to click and add one more and the same color, but I also have a stone that is a 20 SS as well. Okay, click OK. Now all of these colors here are ones that I own. And I want to save this palette so that every time I create a bead design, these are the ones that come up. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see this triple dot that's vertical. If I click that and click Make Current Default, it's going to save these 7 colors exactly as they are. So I'm going to click Make Current Default. Yes, I want to replace the default palette. And now let's go open up a new workspace. And then let's grab our star design again. And I'm going to just click to convert that to stroke. And notice when I click to convert that to a bling stroke, that is my palette that we just set. So these are the beads that I own that I can easily work with. Now it's easy to set this palette versus thread, because thread, I have 288 colors, so I can't put all them on here, but I don't have that many colors of rhinestones. Personally, I only have about 14 different colors, so I can actually make a palette that has every color if I want, okay? So now let's see what we can do with this. So now this is a 16SS. Let's switch it between the 20 and then also the smaller 10 so that we can see the difference, okay? So right now I have this 16 chosen. I'm gonna click here and do a right mouse click on number 7 and change that to that bigger 20. And notice with that bigger stone, I can't fit as many. So my star shape, if it's small enough, it may not even look like a star. I'm going to resize this smaller so that you can see what I mean. So those bigger stones, it can only fit 4 or 5. And so it doesn't even really look like a star. But if I right mouse click on one of my smaller stones, the 10SS, you can see that it can fill in more. Okay, so that is it's just something to be aware when you're creating your designs. Now I'm going to go much larger just because I want us to be able to see really well what we're changing today. Okay, so now this is a 4-inch star. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. It's almost 5 inches. And let's talk about what you can do with the stroke around the outside, okay? So anytime you have a design selected, your properties area is going to show the properties that are specific to that type or that object type. In this case, we are working with a rhinestone design. And if I press the plus here and open it up, you can see that it is now a bling stroke object instead of an artwork. Okay, so now what can we do with that? We've already talked about we can change the colors here, or we can change the stone and the colors here as well. If I click a different stone, I click apply and it will change to that stone. I can also change the spacing between the stones. So let's increase this to 3. And you can see that they're further apart there. I'm going to go back to the default 1 millimeter. The angle is really something that you're not going to use with a round stone. If it's like a heart shape or something like that, it will change the direction of the stone that has a shape. Margin is the distance of the edge of the bead to the edge of the cut hole. I recommend leaving that the 0.3, but when you do your first template, you might want to change that to be a different measurement if you don't like how it's cutting when you do your first template. Orientation also have to do with the size stones that are shaped differently. Okay, so now let's go to count here. So right now count is 1. If I increase count to, let's do 3 and click apply, you can see that my stone here changed colors, but I accidentally have clicked here the at node. So at node is going to put a bead only at those nodes of our artwork. So you can see that it's not everywhere. So I'm going to uncheck that. I didn't mean to check it anyway, and click apply. And now you can see my beads are back all how they were before, not just at a node. So I've got 3 different beads set here. So if I click this number 1 and flip it to number 2. So right now, the number 1 color is blue. If I flip this to number 2, that color is green. I'm going to use my drop-down list and change that to white, and then click apply. Okay, and then let's click right here again on the number 2, change it to number 3. And then from our drop-down list, I'm going to choose red and click apply. And so I can do that for quite a few different colors if I want. So when you're doing rhinestone designs, you would create as many colors as you wanted here, but that's how you would change them. Okay, now to save a rhinestone design, you need to use the export bling option, which is under file and export bling. Okay, remember, if we're saving an artwork file, we're going to use the cutter. If we are saving an embroidery file, we're going to use file and save as. And if you're saving a rhinestone design, you're going to use file and bling export. Okay, so when I click this, I get a window that opens up, tells me the 3 color stones that I have. and how many it's going to take to do each of those colors. And it has my format up here, and I can switch to a different format if I need to. And you can see here that this is separated into 3 different files. If I click the arrows here, I've got one file for blue, and it's hard to see those, but it's actually the circles for the clear. And then I've got one for the red. Okay. And it has a box around it that's going to cut out like a frame around our design. So if we're using a large piece of the rhinestone material, okay, you can remove the frame here if you don't want to use that. And you can change the margin, which is the space around your between your cut line and between your beads. Okay, this margin over here is between the beads and the cut holes. So, okay, now a 3 different color design. That means I'm going to take my red stones, or right now my blue stones, and rake them in all of these and apply them with heat, because these are heat activated rhinestones you would use. And then I would use my clear stones to fill these holes, and I would put that into position and iron that. And then the red, and that's when it's going to make my 3 color star. Okay. You can change this from multi-page to single page, but look here, I've got 3 different colors. If I cut them all out on the same page, I won't be able to make sure that all the red ones go in the red holes, the blue go in the blue holes, and the white or the clear go in the appropriate holes. Okay, so that's what the multi-page does, is breaks it up into 3 files so that you know that it's going to get where they're meant to be. Okay. The other thing about the single file, now you could just pour a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, and a little bit of white stones on top of this and just let them fall where they fall. So it would be random. So that would be kind of cool, right? Okay, so I'm going to click close. Or if you want to save it, you would click save here. So, and here, let's just do that too. Since we did this, we're going to call this our star design. And then I'm going to call this my star bling, because my other one was star, that was an SVG, and click save. And it'll save those files for me. Either, well, in this case, it's going to save 1. If I have it set to multi-pages, it would save those 3 for me to cut. Okay, so let's click close. Okay, and then work more with our file here. Now, so the other thing you can do with the bling stroke is here in our properties area, you can change the number of outer rings. So let's increase this to, let's say 3, and click apply. And you can see that it put 3 separate rings. And notice they're all 3 those separate colors. Okay. So if you don't want it all to be different colors, you would change that up here. And we'll do that here in just a minute. Okay. And you can change the joins to maybe a round if you want. I think that looks much better. And actually, I think that looks pretty cute. I like that, actually. But let's go further, okay? So with these outer rings, you have different styles, different joins, and you can also change the distance between the rings. So if I increase this to, say, 4 millimeters, you can see that they're spaced further apart. I'm going to go back down, let's say 2 millimeters, okay? And then let's change the style and see what that does, okay? You've got stripes 1 and 2, which just give you a little bit different look. You can see that I've got closer together here and the first, and then these are spaced a little further apart. I've also got fade out 1 and 2, which kind of does kind of a burst around. And then I also have a scatter, which is my favorite. I love that. And you can see how that kind of scatters around as well. Now, if you don't have 3 colors, let's reduce the number of colors up here. And so instead of our count being 3 for the colors, let's go back to 2 and click apply. And you can see now that this is using a 2 color. And then if I go down to 1, it will be all 1 color design. Okay. Now that's all done with the bling stroke. Okay, let's now switch to bling fill. So I'm going to click apply, or click on the bling fill. You can see that it's switched to filling my design with rhinestones. And over here, we have some similar options. We can change to different beads, which correspond to our palette. So I could either choose it here and click apply, or I could right mouse click on one of my chips here to change. Okay, so 2 different ways to do it. We talked about the spacing and the margin. It works similar with this option as well. And so I'm going to go back to the 1 millimeter because I like it all filled in. Okay. And your count here with the fill, you can actually only have one filled in color. But watch this. Okay. So with a fill design, you can change the orientation or the formation of the beads in these different types. And so I would just say click to play around with them. You do have this texture option, which I'm going to click apply on, and it actually fills with a pattern of beads. And you can see those by clicking this ellipsis option here, and you can choose from these different options. Okay. And you can see how it changed it there. Now notice how the tips are not filled in, and just what we talked about the bead sizes, you know, it has to be able to fill in those areas with that size stone, but you can change to these different fills types, which I think are super cute. And we do have this one that is a 2-color wave, and you would change the colors the same way that we did with the other one. Okay, so let's go back to just the regular uniform. And I also wanted to point out that you can have bead or rhinestone fill and a rhinestone stroke together. Okay, so now that I've got my fill done, I do still have this tab for my bling stroke. So if I click that, right now it's set to 0. So if I increase that to 1 and click apply, you can see that it puts a row around my fill design, and I can increase that just like we did before to multiple colors if I wanted. And I could choose those different colors by selecting this option here and changing that to a bead color just like we did before. Okay, so if you forgot how to do that, I know that went fast. You can rewind and watch this again after the it's done airing. This episode will be available on our YouTube channel for pretty much forever. So, okay, so now we can also, under this stroke, we can apply these different styles now that we have a stroke on here as well. So if I do like my scatter, which is my favorite, I'm going to add a few outer rings and then click apply. Now, isn't that cool? I absolutely love that. Okay, so now that alone is a fantastic design, right? For your patriotic shirt that you're maybe making for the upcoming holiday. But let's take it a little bit further and also do a apply this to letters or fonts, and also create our own design. So not only can you use the built-in artwork, but you can use the text tool in Cut and Stitch. That is our true type text tool. And you can also draw artwork. So let's just move this over. We're going to work on the same page here, and let's use our artwork tool. You can draw any of these shapes here and convert those to rhinestones, but I'm actually just going to use the pen tool. And I'm just going to do a click, and then I'm going to hold down my control key to make a curved point. And then I'm going to just make another point kind of out here so that I have kind of an arc. And then I'm going to do that one more time. Click, hold down my control key, and click, and then click. Okay. And now if I right mouse click, it will kind of set everything for me. So what I thought would be cool to do with these was make it kind of like a burst or fireworks with the stroke option here. So if I click on the, I can do this here on the stroke option first and turn those into beads, and then use my carousel tool to create a kind of a firework kind of burst. Okay, so this circle size for the center, I'm going to drop that down to, let's say, 4 inches, and see how that does. We might go smaller, but let's rotate these around. So if I use this angle option here, I can actually rotate. I'm pushing the down arrow. Oh, I'm glad I didn't do those any closer together. And so you can see that these will rotate to give me a different look. Now we can't have our beads overlapping. Okay. So, and I want it to kind of look like this, kind of like a firework burst. And so if I increase this number to say a 5, it'll spread those out, but let's leave those together because I'll show you another trick too. Okay, so now these are all touching in the center, and we can't have beads on top of each other, but you can also play with the number of repeats here. So do, you know, however many you want. Play with those settings, and then I'm just going to make sure I click apply and then click OK. Okay. So now that's kind of a cute little firework burst there, but right here in the center we've got a lot of beads that are touching. Okay, I can see it on the screen. For one, you see all those overlapping pieces, or if you click your bead tool here, all of that red is all overlapping beads. So it's letting you know that there's a problem here. Okay, so let's go back to our regular select tool, and I'm going to select this entire design, and I'm going to right mouse click, and under bling, choose remove overlap. It will get rid of all the overlapping beads. And so I always like to double check, because sometimes I have to do it a couple of times. Okay. And when I click my bead tool, nothing turned red. So I know I'm really good. Let's zoom in here. Another thing the individual bead tool can do, it can allow you to move just a single bead. So if you have a couple like that are kind of close together, you can click individual beads and kind of move them around to get them, you know, exactly where you want them. Okay. Or you could even delete one. So right here with it selected, if I right mouse click, I can say delete bead, and I can add it as well. But I'm just going to move that and put it in the center. Okay. Pretty good, right? Cute. Love it. Okay, so now let's change some colors. Okay, I'm going to go back to my regular select tool, and I'm going to ungroup this. So ungroup on your toolbar, or either right mouse click and ungroup. And I'm going to select some of these individual, and I'm just going to skip about every third, fourth one, not going to be like super particular. And then I'm going to change those all to red by clicking right mouse click on my red bead on my palette. And then let's go and choose every other one-ish, you know, however you want to do that, and turn those to white or clear. So right mouse click, and now we've got a multicolor little burst here. So I'm going to resize this because it's really large, and watch how when I resize, the beads are recalculated, but by resizing it, it actually has some overlaps here in the center again. So if I select this and click on my bead tool, do you see all that red stuff? Okay, so now go back to your regular select tool, select it, right mouse click, bling, remove overlap. Okay, and there you've got a cute little design that you can put for on another design. So I'm going to make those, a couple of those, just a little bit smaller, because now we're going to work with our text. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my text tool, and my A is attached to my cursor. I'm going to click on my workspace, and then here we're going to enter our text over here. So I just did USA. You could do 4th, you could do July, you could do freedom, whatever you want. Okay. And because the beads have to fill it and actually show, I like to use kind of a chunky font, and I'm going to use this Cooper. Most of you have this font, but you do need to understand that the true type font list here is dependent of what fonts you have installed on your computer. So your list may look different than mine, but I think most of us have Cooper. Okay, so I'm going to zoom into Cooper. Right now, it's just a design that is only 0.81 tall, and let's click our bling so that we can see what happens. Now, you can't even tell that that says USA, right? And I'm going to do undo, and I'm going to resize that larger. Now, the nice thing about doing a rhinestone design, it doesn't have to fit in your hoop, okay? And so you can make it much larger, and especially if you're putting something on a shirt, I like to do mine like 8 or 9 inches. Like I wear, you know, large or extra large depending on the shirt. So I a lot of times will do like an 8 or a 9-inch design for mine, but measure your shirt, make it whatever you want. So I'm going to make mine 9 inches wide, and let's make it taller. I'm going to uncheck, and I really want my letters to look stretched tall. Okay, so that is my text. Now let's talk about applying rhinestones to text objects. Okay, so now you can see down here in the very bottom, I have a text object. This is my sequence view, by the way. So let me make that a different color so it'll separate that out, and I'm going to minimize my rhinestone design here, but you can see I've got a text object. Okay, so the text object means that if I want to come back here and change these letters, I can just do it, and I don't have to recreate it, okay? And once it's not a text object, then it is not as easy to change. You have to recreate the text, okay? So if I select the text here and I click for bling fill, notice now it is no longer a text object. So it is a bling fill, okay? If I undo, select my text again. Notice over here in the properties area, there's an option to convert to satin, artwork, bling stroke, or bling fill. Let's do the bling fill, click apply. And over here in my sequence view, if I push that plus to expand, you can see it is still a text object, which means that I could change the text saying, or the words, the letters, and then reapply. Okay, so that's the nice thing about leaving it a text object. Okay, so you can do this, and I think this design right here actually looks really cute. If I go back to my text design, I might even like to give it a little bit of shape. If I use my text tool, these little shapes will come up so I can adjust it, and then undo. And then I can even put these shapes. I'm going to group these together so they stay together. I could even put these like around my text to kind of give my design a little bit different look. Okay. Now, I think that that looks cute, but I wanted to have stripes in my letters. So let's make a new page and do that. Okay. So let's do our true type font again. Select text, click it on the screen, put our letters. I'm going to do USA again, click apply. Let's set the size. I'm going to do 9 inches wide by 4 inches high. Again, depending on the shirt size that you're using, you may want to do different, but that's the size that I wanted to do. And I'm going to have to, what we're about to do, I'm going to have to break this up, and it's no longer going to be a text object. So just so you know. So now I'm going to right mouse click and break up text. And now you can see that I've got 3 different artwork objects. That is the U, the S, and the A. So the U, I wanted to leave it blue, but I wanted to make this a red and white stripe. So next, what I did was select the S, hold down your control key, select the A, and then click the combine option. Now that I've combined it, I'm going to use the slice tool to slice some stripes. Okay. Now, if you do not combine this first, let's watch what happens. If I choose my slice tool over here, you can see that when I slice, it slices across the S and the A. Okay. If I I'm going to break these up. Okay. If you don't, well, actually, let's do undo here and undo one more time. If you don't combine them, you can see how they're separate letters. If I choose my slice tool, it will only slice across one of the objects. Okay, so that's why I combine them. So let's do an undo and combine them again so that they act like one object. Okay, so I just select both of them, control and click, or either drag a box. Use the paper clip icon here to combine. Now with those still selected, choose your slice tool and then click and drag. Now I'm going to turn on my grid so that I can drag a straight line. Okay, so I'm going to just start here, click and drag across the A, and I'm just lining it up with that grid point there. Okay, and then I just release my mouse click. Okay, let's do that again. So I've got my knife tool still selected, and this one I'm going to slice, let's say about down here. Okay, and I just click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag until you get that exactly where you want it. Now, let's say you accidentally didn't make it straight. Once you release your mouse click, you can hover over that point and then go and move it if you need to. Okay. Now, once you've sliced 2 places, do a, actually, I think I'm going to move this one down. I've got a lot in the middle. Let's move this down. I just didn't want to cut through that center part there. So I'm going to move that down like that. I think I like that better. Okay. Now, once you're done with your tool, you can choose your select tool. Okay. And you can kind of see my lines through there, but it's still just one object. So I need to break it up. So I'm going to click the break up on the toolbar. And now I've got all of these separate pieces that I can change to separate colors. So I'm holding down my control key and selecting all those parts, converting them to red. And here I'm going to convert these to white. Okay. And oh, I missed one right there. That needs to be white also. But now this right here, you can see that when I broke up my text, it separated out that inner part. So I'm going to undo to put it right back where it needs to go. So here's what I recommend doing to get that back. Okay, so select this, hold down the control key and select the background area, and then use your shaping tool that is subtract, and it will cut that hole out again. Okay, so now this is just ready to be converted to our rhinestones. Okay, so now I'm going to select everything and then click my rhinestone or my bling fill. How cool is that? Now let's take it one step further here and let's create an outline around it. And look, I can actually tell in this picture I've got some overlapping rhinestones, so we'll fix that. So I'm going to create an outline about a 1/4 inch away, okay, and click preview. Actually, maybe more because I want this to come up. So let's increase that to say a 0.4 preview, up even more. And a 5. If that doesn't do it, we're going to manually work on it. Okay, that doesn't do it. So let's manually work on it. So I'm actually going to go back to like a 0.4 preview and make it round, just makes it smooth. Okay. And then click OK. So here, what I want to do is move this point up. So your shape tool, which is over here on the left, will let you edit these points. So I can actually just delete them. And it will, remove those. And then now I've kind of got this, and I'm actually kind of happy with that. I don't need it to go all the way down. And the reason I wanted that is because I wanted to do that scatter. Okay. So that was the create outline tool that we used to create the outline. This is just an artwork outline. So now I just click to turn that into a bling stroke. And now over here in my settings, I'm going to increase those outer rings. I'm going to change those colors to 3 different colors. Remember, select color number 2. I'm going to make that white. Apply color number 3. I think I need a red, and click apply. Okay. And then now I'm going to change it to my scatter, which I love. How cool is that, right? Okay, so that's a fun little way to create some rhinestone designs. So now you're going to export bling. So file, export bling. And then once you create that SVG file, you're going to take it to your digital cutter, and it's going to cut out, let me turn off my realistic view here. It's going to cut out all these little holes, and then you're going to rake the rhinestones into those little holes to make your rhinestone template design. Now, I can't wait to see what all of you do with your rhinestone tool and your patriotic designs. But here's just one more inspiration. I also created this 4th of July design here where I used true type text. I used the filled that. You can see that I used the text tool to fill it, so it remained a text object. But this number 4, I actually sliced it up just like we did, and those stars I placed over top and use that same subtract tool that we used for the center of that A. And then this is just a different take on that little burst for our fireworks. And this is also just a true type text here. Okay, so this 4th of July design, you can create that with the same tools that we just used for the USA. So I hope that you learned something in this episode of Software Success. So let's head back over to our PowerPoint. I just wanted to remind you I was using cut and stitch software today. So if you don't own it, you can certainly play with it. There's an option to try it inside of our free embroidery tool shed in the shopping cart tab. Okay. Now, in 2 weeks, I am going to be back here on Software Success for another viewer request. So on July 15th, we are going to be doing custom fills by creating a shape with a custom fill. Like you can see here, I used that cherry design to create that custom fill with that repeat pattern there. And then I use that repeat pattern actually as a quilting background fill on this little design here. So that was another viewer request. So we will be talking about that in on July 15th at 1 p.m. Central Time. So make sure that you join me for that episode. Now, just a reminder, today we were talking about cut and stitch software and making those rhinestone designs. If you do not own cut and stitch software, I definitely recommend it. I love it. So if you want to purchase it, first and foremost, I always like to tell everybody to check with your local dealer, or your maybe they're not local, maybe it's just your brick and mortar dealer, maybe they're a little further away, but support your favorite brick and mortar store. Go there, see if they are a dime or an OESD dealer, and let them know you want to get cut and stitch software. They can make you a great deal, I'm certain of it, and then that gives you another place to go to for help. If you do not have a local dealer, certainly you can go to our website, dzgns.com, and check out our special there on the cut and stitch software. But I love it. I love all of my dime software, and it's really helpful in my embroidery and crafting studio, and it keeps me creating. It keeps me creative. So I just love it. So, all right, guys, until we have another software success, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for joining me.